Demi Radeva, and this is the Akros Advantage. Across the industry, we're hearing about real-time decisions, personalized experiences, and AI-powered workflows. At the same time, payers are tightening utilization, managing margins, and increasing oversight, and similar trends on the provider side as well. That tension raises a deeper question. How viable are these promises without strong identity resolution and data integrity? I'm joined here by Joe from Verato Health, and I'd love for you to tell us more about you and what you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Demi. Nice to meet you. Nice to be here. So my name is Joe Hickey, and I'm the VP of the Provider HIE Market for Verato, HIE being the all-important health information exchanges. And my focus is to have conversations with executives in larger healthcare organizations and the HIEs on a really important topic, and that's identity, as you mentioned, and making sure that identity is accurate, it's reliable, and it's available everywhere because it drives so many other strategic transformations downstream.
What got you interested in being in the space and working for Verato?
Yeah, I've been in healthcare for quite a while, and I've always tried to pick organizations that are doing good in healthcare. And right away, I saw that Verato was solving a really important foundational challenge. And again, that's the identity layer that needs to sit below the core systems of record, systems of engagement, and really bring all of that information together so that you can have, a view of the patient from a 360-degree lens. And that rings true for payers, it rings true for providers and locations. And so I was really drawn to that. I'm really fortunate and excited to have been with Verato for about 4.5 years, and we're on a great trajectory, and we're solving one of the biggest problems in healthcare.
Amazing. I'm curious, how does identity trust infrastructure determine whether AI-enabled consumer experiences are truly achievable?
Yeah, I mean, the rise of consumerism in healthcare is real, and it should be. We're all so used to having a personalized experience when it comes to retail, banking, travel, leisure. We should have the basic expectation that, yes, my healthcare journey is going to be connected and it's going to be personalized and it's going to be about me and who's in my household, etc. So yeah, it's really important that, again, we're seeing a 360-degree view of the patient. I think that consumerism is going to continue to drive that because that expectation has been set, and consumers have so many more choices today as well. So if you trip up or if you have inaccurate information going back to the patient, maybe through some engagement or through a portal, they may leave, right? They may go seek healthcare somewhere else. So this is really all about making sure that we're being proactive with our communities to increase the overall healthcare of people. I think also it's a growth game, right? And making sure that we're retaining patients, but we're also reaching out and engaging in the right way to grow the overall footprint for healthcare organizations.
So what happens when this all goes wrong and we don't have that 360 view?
Yeah, again, from the personal experience for the patient, there's definitely downstream impacts to that when it comes to eroding trust, and potentially they leave that system. There's patient safety risks. From a payer perspective, there's all of the increasing pressures that are coming in that arena when it comes to rising costs, value-based care models, consumerism, expectations. And if we can't get that right, that's going to, fall into the category of denied claims, confusion, gaps in care is another one, right? If we don't have things like prior authorization and consent and a really good understanding that's attached to every person, those are some pretty big downstream risks that we should all really think about getting right. And that's where we're helping solve that.
So where does AI, or how does AI solve for some or all of this? And what's its role?
Yeah, it's, we're here in Los Angeles at Vive, and you can't walk 5 feet
Right.
without seeing something about AI. And I think, there's the general answer is that we have to stabilize the data before we can really start to scale AI.
Okay.
And I think all important, the first step in that is to make sure that we're harmonizing all of the data around a person, around a payer, a location, and a provider. You have to do that first.
Okay.
And then it gets really exciting with what AI can do in healthcare. So I think first we have to think a little bit more narrowly to get the first step right. And then we can take advantage of, imagine a world where a call center agent can get a patient on a phone, and sometimes that's rare, and take full advantage of that.
Mm.
Really personalize the phone conversation. Something like, "Hi, Joe, we heard you had back problems last year. How are you doing?"
Mm.
And start there, and then talk to them about scheduling their next appointment, and maybe even reminding them that they have a child wellness visit coming up. I mean, I think that's where we're going. But again, the foundation of that is, do I know who Joe is? And do I understand his longitudinal clinical history? Do I understand who's in his household? Do I understand his preferences? And if you get that right, then it's really personalized.
So, can AI actually help with the harmonization problem that you mentioned?
I think so. And I think that comes in two categories. And again, Verato's solving the identity component of it.
Hmm.
We'll leave it to others to solve the clinical
Okay.
component of that. When you think about a person's health record, sometimes that's 10 years, 15, 20 years long. And that is the health record, a lot of
Hmm.
those notes. So there are bigger ideas and bigger algorithms that are being investigated now to kind of figure out, how do we put in the right type of vectors to make all of that make good sense for us? And again, that's where it gets really exciting from an AI perspective. But, again, all of that's attached to a person, right? All that data at the other end of it, there's a person, and we really need to know who they are.
Do you see healthcare consumerism being used primarily to empower patients or to steer behavior more efficiently, meaning it's more for the health system, it's more for the payer?
Yeah, everybody's going to benefit,
Okay.
and I think that, we've talked about how the patient can benefit because they're going
Hmm.
to feel like they can trust their data and their health system knows who they are. And if they don't, they can go across the street and seek care elsewhere. So I
Hmm.
think I think the healthcare organizations who are going to win in the long run are the ones who are taking advantage of AI and getting it right and going through that process of unifying and harmonizing and stabilizing the data, connecting it in the right way. Also making sure that we enrich the data, which is something Verato solves as well. There's a lot of the clinical data, there's the demographic data, but then there's all this other enrichment data that we can enter into the system for a provider, for a payer, for a patient, all who have play inside that patient's journey.
Hmm.
And so I think everybody can benefit from it. The healthcare organizations are looking to have more personalized engagement so that they can, again, capture and acquire more patients and not lose patients. They want to retain patients. And then, of course, from the payer's perspective, right? They want to make sure that they're staying in balance with their value-based care
Yes.
models, number one. Two, they have the right information so that claims don't get denied and they can achieve a revenue realization rate much quicker. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for everybody.
What are those type of data sets that are enriching the data? Are we talking about, I went to Kroger and I bought a bunch of groceries and now you know that about me? Or like you mentioned, the back pain. I feel like I'd be pretty terrified if my payer called me up and said, "Hey, Demi, we know that you hurt your back. Let's get you an appointment."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there's rules around all of that,
Okay.
right? And
Okay.
we have to have the proper algorithms so that, yeah, we're not scaring the patient.
Right.
But we're leveraging and we're using the data in the appropriate way.
Mhm.
As far as data attribution is concerned, when you think about the provider, we're helping make sure the basics are done right, that the right NPI number is attached to the provider, the right specialty and subspecialty and location that they practice. So that's the kind of infusion and data enrichment that we can put in there. From a patient's perspective, yes, we have a lot of the demographic information, name, date of birth, address, et cetera. And those are all important to get right,
Hmm.
especially for that personalized outreach.
Yeah.
But social determinants of health is a good example to make sure that we're enriching that. Household information, we're going there as well. But yeah, we have to be responsible about how we use all of that uh, for the best outcome of the patient, the
Hmm.
best outcome for the payers. And no doubt we can do it. We have all the data. Again, it just has to be stabilized and harmonized, and it has to be data that we can trust. We're really good at moving data, but the question is, do we have enough trust in the data, especially when it comes to AI, to really make sure that we're going to make good decisions?
So how do we assess the data and we know that, hey, we've actually improved it, we're in a better place now, and now let's use and deploy AI and deploy the different models?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. And this rings true for payers, providers, and patients. Oftentimes what we see when we begin a partnership with a large organization, whether it be a payer or a healthcare organization, is that they have redundant data in the form of duplicates, or they have overlapping data that they can't make sense of. And that's because there's multiple contributing systems that are coming in, and everybody owns one system, and everybody will say, yeah, I know the data in my system, but the real question is, do you know your data at an enterprise scale?
Sure.
And that's where we come in. We help solve the problem of a lot of that redundant data, a lot of that overlapping data, and we make sense of it. So the end result sometimes is, we have 41 contributing data streams coming in, and we can get our arms around that very quickly, and we can narrow that down to maybe half of that, and we can narrow it down to maybe half of the identities that were once in your EMR, because you had so much redundant data, so many duplicates. So it comes in the form of cleaner data ultimately.
How long does that process take? Is it weeks? Is it months? Is it does it vary by the size of organization that you're working with?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely the size and scope of what we're dealing with. But if you think about it from the perspective of the inefficiency that happens with people manually doing that data cleanup versus Verato coming in and solving that problem with automation.
Yeah.
Yeah, speed to value is definitely there. We have saved customers anywhere between 2 and 5 million just in manual stewardship, moving to that automation. So there's a lot to be gained there. Another example would be how quickly we can credential providers, how much more quickly we can. Right. A lot of times we hear from our partners that process can take 40 to 60 days. Verato could immediately get that down to 10 to 15 days.
Wow. Okay.
Every day that a provider misses getting fully credentialed is about $10,000. So you do the math on that.
Yeah.
It's very important.
What is the most beneficial aspect of when you approach a payer or health system? What is that one feature that you lead with, or do you lead with the whole ecosystem that you've created?
Yeah. Verato has a value engineering department. So what they'll do is we'll do a lot of discovery with our partners to understand what's their current state. And then we'll talk to them about those contributing sources. We'll talk to them about the metrics and the KPIs that they're trying to solve. And then what we'll do is we'll map that back to where can we intersect certain work streams and say, if we intersect the work stream here and we make identity 98% more accurate, what will the output be? And that's how we arrive at the use cases.
Okay.
There's a lot of common threads when it comes to the use cases that everyone is trying to solve, and they differ between payer, provider, location, and patient. But a lot of it has to do with growth, number one. Number two, it has to do with inefficiencies. And three, it all has to do with exceptional experiences, because the better experiences you can give to your community, the more apt they are to stay with you, to seek more services, and not leave. So those are sort of the three buckets that we usually map back to.
I'm curious to go back to the human level, and I'm curious about the founder story and what was the sort of inception? Where did the idea come from?
We started in government, actually.
Okay.
11 years ago.
All right.
And we were doing some background checks, identity verification for the Pentagon. And our owner at the time was approached, and the idea was, there's a lot of data and mistrust in healthcare. And, potentially we can go into that realm and try to get our arms around how to connect and unify and verify and enrich patient data. And then that led to, let's do the same for consumers and also payers and also providers. So it's really a multi-domain enterprise approach, which is what is needed in any healthcare setting.
Are you noticing executives on the receiving end being overly optimistic about certain parts of this process?
I think, first of all, healthcare executives are all busy. There's multiple things on their plate. And what I'm enjoying is making sure that we're taking this specific discussion when it comes to identity and data. We're moving it from a technical discussion to really a strategic enterprise dialogue, because everybody understands that if I get identity right, if I really truly know who is who in my system, who I knew who is who in my payers, et cetera, my providers, that there's a lot of opportunity there. So we make sure we meet our customers where they are so it doesn't become overwhelming. I think we also have very transparent discussions with them about AI,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Because, and really healthcare executives, I think they get it. I think that everyone understands that there's a lot to be gained and everybody has really big ideas on AI, but let's just pause for a moment and take the first steps with AI so we can really build the trust around the data and then we can scale from there.
Lovely. Can you ground me in the vision state? Like, if this is all done right, what does that then look like for a health system? What does that look like for a payer? What does that look like to the patient?
Yeah. In simple terms, we're allowing larger healthcare organizations and payers to make the statement, I truly know who is who across my enterprise, right? It's that simple. And until identity gets to that level, a lot of the other downstream digital transformation initiatives that everybody wants to do, they're not going to be realized, right? So that's the first part of it. I think the second and really exciting part of it is how do we potentially get this to a national level? And Verato is starting to work with some of the current partners that we have now from a network perspective, and potentially sharing data across networks. And that's really kind of the first step to a national patient identifier, which is it's in the distance, and there's a lot of policy and so forth and regulatory compliance around that. But I'd love in my lifetime to see that NPI, just like my social security number, and it follows me everywhere, so that I'm from Colorado, but I'm here in Los Angeles, and God forbid something happens, that they know who I am, they know my clinical history, so that my care, they can give me the best care possible.
Well, on that note, what's one thing you'd love to leave our audience with?
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for doing this. I really enjoy explaining what Verato's doing in the industry because it's so important. Visit Verato.com, come and find us, and we'll have a great conversation about identity.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Hey.